Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome, everybody.
And we have a special guest today, Jerry Kroll from Electromechanica Solo, the founder, who's also an author who wrote a book, Beyond Elon, the Next Great EV and Living Past 200. So anyway, Jerry is going to spend some time with us today to talk about a car that began to become somewhat popular, the Electromechanica Solo. So we'll turn it over to you, Jerry.
Lovely. Thanks, Pete. It's awesome to be here as well, too, in the in sunny Arizona. It's still snowing in Canada, so coming down here seems like a reprieve. Perfect solo weather as well, too. Yeah. So the premise behind the Solo always was, first of all, saving the planet. You know, the mission that I started off with was to come up with a company that would be able to close the last gas station, because we really can't be burning fossil fuels into the environment. And everybody can see what's happening here. I don't even think that the weather here in Arizona is normal, too, like 36, 38 degrees Celsius in April. That's a little bit
Actually, that's pretty common.
peaky.
Unfortunately.
We had our first triple-digit day Sunday, I think it was.
Yes,
we
it
got
was
to 100.
Sunday. It was Sunday. So what did I do? I went outside and did work outside all day.
Yeah.
Good for you.
We're used to it. Yeah.
I don't want to see 150 or anything like that. So giving people a great option for electrics, and really the electric industry from when we started in 1999 until now has just taken off beyond the dreams. That's kind of how we know each other and mutual friends with Tesla and all that. And then the idea of saying, oh, look, it's not just the fossil fuels, but it's also traffic congestion. And why is 90% of the traffic one person in a 5 or 6 or 7 person car? That makes no sense, right? So coming up with a vehicle that is the equivalent of an iPhone for the road, right? When I ask people, what's your primary computer? They usually say, oh, I've got a desktop or a laptop. I said, no, not what's your big computer. What's your primary computer? And for pretty much everybody, it's your iPhone. It's a personal one that you can take with you. It's very nimble, and it does almost everything. And that's really what the Solo does. It's one of the most nimble, fun, easy-to-use vehicles out there.
And it is a single commuter vehicle, which of course breaks some molds. And, you know, you often look outside your car and you say, why is there only one person in that gigantic 4-wheel drive pickup truck spewing, you know, fumes? I'm sorry, I'm talking about Aaron, aren't I? He's one of the guys that does that.
I know, I was feeling personally attacked there for a second.
It's so much more elegant and cost effective and easier on the planet when one person is in a vehicle.
And fun. You know, you find a place to park, and you can find a place that's inexpensive, free, because it's a motorcycle parking spot. You actually feel like you're integrating more with, you know, your environment, downtown, whatever city you are, Europe, America, Asia, wherever you are.
Right. So give us a little bit of history about the Solo and the company that is at the seed of this, Electromechanica. There's a rich history there.
Yeah, I'd like to tell you everything about it, but then nobody would buy this wonderful book. So what I'll do is I'll give you the Cole's notes on it. That'll entice people to do it. So my background beyond horticulture, which is the family business, which you didn't know, German parents as well too, coming over from Germany and being in the horticulture business. And I think that's where I found my passion for the planet, knowing that everything is interconnected. I also had a passion for motorsports and was and still am an agent for some race car drivers, some very well-known ones. Scott Dixon is one of my clients. Greg Moore was a client, Scott Sharp as well too. So I did a lot of work with that. And in 1994, I remember waking up at the end of the IndyCar season and looking at all of the bits and pieces that were broken. I just went, we burned through $12 million and we really didn't accomplish anything. There's got to be a better way. And that's when I said, we can do this with electrics. So opened up a race shop in the NASA Research Park in Moffett Field called Clean Speed. And started to build prototype cars with electric drivetrains. And that's where I met Tom Gage from AC Propulsion, who supplied the first system. And then I was invited out to breakfast with a couple of guys named Mark Tarpening and Martin Eberhardt. They were doing something wacky. I don't know what that was all about. I don't know what happened to those guys. So we went to Buck's, which is the famous place down in Woodside, for breakfast with these guys. And in hindsight, the fact that there weren't cameras filming that is such a tragedy, because it really was napkins, breakfast napkins, writing, okay, this is what the motor's going to look like and everything like that. So that was amazing. And then from that, the cars, which we set records for it, Laguna Seca, Sears Point Raceway with the clean speed vehicles, developing that technology with lithium ion batteries into the Solo prototypes, which we did back at our factory in Vancouver, Canada, with a company called Intermechanica, which was founded in 1959. Friends of mine had been building cars for people like Alex Trebek and everything over the years, Italian cars with American motors, and they wanted to go electric too. So I acquired that company. We started to build the prototype, took the company public, and expanded from Canada into Mesa, Arizona, China as well too. We had some unfortunate incidents where the cars being manufactured in China suddenly were tagged with a 25% tariff duty at the last minute. And if you're making 10% profit in the automobile industry, you're one of the more profitable things. So getting tagged with 25% is kind of lights out at that point in time. So that was going uphill, and that didn't go away. It's still out there as well too. So, and if anything, I think it's going to be going up. So a rethink has to be done, and that's kind of why I'm here, and that's why you and I met for a relaunch of a new Solo GT.
Right. The electric drivetrain that was originally used in the Solo, did that perchance come from AC Propulsion or any of the people that you mentioned?
No, it's a lot less than that. I think we were working with 400 horsepower at the AC Propulsion one. It's a monster. So this is the kind of car that when you accelerate, you get tunnel vision, right? It's like being launched off a carrier. So you don't really want that in a road car unless you're getting the new Tesla Roadster. Then you do want it, right? But for something like this, no, it was much less. An easy-going, reliable package that you can build. I'm a big proponent of value engineering. And you've got to be able to have a product that people can buy for $15,000 to $17,000, which is a modest kind of a motorcycle, and have air conditioning, Bluetooth, everything that all the niceties, so that when you're driving it for a week or two, you can't live without it. Mm-hmm. Just like if you lost your iPhone or whatever cell phone that you have, you feel like you're walking around without clothes. Like, where's I'm not connected, right? And that's really the beauty. And people who have their Solos and are driving around, they know exactly what I mean, because you get into that, you close it, you feel like James Bond when you're in the car. It drives that way, it feels that way. And there's also something weird. I know it doesn't rain in Arizona that much, but when it does rain, and you're in the Solo, you really feel like you're in that little Lotus underwater like that. It's really a cool feeling.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, we're talking about a three-wheeler here, folks. And one thing that I was surprised to find out after touring the factory with you was that it is not an in-wheel motor. It is actually a belt-driven type arrangement, and the rear wheel is the drive wheel. So we've got two in the front, one in the rear, and it is classified as a motorcycle, which changes a number of things, I guess, regarding its roadworthiness and the amount of regulation. Tell us a bit about that. What's the advantage of having a three-wheeler that's classified as a motorcycle?
Tripod is the most stable platform in the world. Right? Okay. And I was at the hotel here in Arizona last night, and I think on one of the byways, a semi-trailer flipped over, right? And I always like to tell people, like, why does a vehicle with 18 wheels tip over, right? You'd think that would be the most stable thing, and it's because the center of gravity is so high. All right. So if you have a tripod, that's what you use for any photography, because it is the most stable thing. So from there, it's all about engineering, making sure that you've got the CG as low as possible to the front as possible, and that's really the stability of the vehicle. You've reduced 25% of the weight of the vehicle by cutting off a quarter of it. And when you're driving it, again, to the Solo Nation who are driving their Solos around, once you're in the car, you don't know if there's one wheel or 17 back, right? It's just a stable vehicle as you're driving around corners and all that. So value engineering wise, there's a lot of reasons. Hub motors still aren't there. That's kind of the holy grail of simplicity for electric vehicles, is to just put a hub motor on it. And especially for a three-wheeler, having it at the back where you don't have the unsprung weight issue on the rear wheel, that would be something to have happen.
So the way we became acquainted with Electromechanica Solo, we knew they were here in the state because you could go to Fashion Square in Scottsdale at any point in time, and we usually did, my wife and I, And after going to the Tesla store, which was first, then we would go down to the Solo and then to the Polestar
Okay. Yep.
exhibit. And there was always a pretty red Solo vehicle, and we would chat with them and say, we're in the EV space as well, and you guys have great product here, on and on. So that was my first introduction to Solo. And then I was surprised a few months ago, got a call from an auctioneer that said, we're going to be liquidating some of the product at the Tesla, or I'm sorry, Solo Mesa location. Are you interested? And of course we were, and we bid on a number of items. Tell us about how we got to that, or how your company got to that point.
And this is, again, where you come in. Some of the difficulties in the DC to DC converters and the drive systems and all that, there's a glitch that needed to be addressed. They didn't have the ability to address that glitch, which is a talent that you are singularly qualified for.
Thank you.
And we'll give you the chance to prove that. So that's the exciting part of that. And so it was a product situation where we had 1,400 of these absolutely gorgeous vehicles out there. And not everybody experienced this, but and we're assuming that people would drain the 12-volt battery as they were driving by window lifts, AC, whatever they were doing, right?
Seat heaters, headlights.
Seat heater, headlights, whatever it was. But when the development team here in Mesa was trying to replicate the fault, they couldn't do that, which caused the situation. But it's, again, something that you and your team will undoubtedly find out and catch. So what they did is the decision was made. They found a beautiful company, an electric truck company called Exos, XOS, based out of Los Angeles and Nashville area as well too. That's doing a beautiful job of delivery vans, things like that, and just has done a deal with Winnebago for some of their vehicles, which personally I want one as well too. So they've just merged with that company. Great guys. You have to have them on the show. They're absolutely wonderful guys. So they've done that. And then I have retaken all of the Solo assets and preparing for a relaunch in 2025 with the Solo GT, which will be an improved, revised version with an exceptional DC-DC converter in the vehicle. And one of the most spectacular things we ever did, and this happened in 2022, is we shipped 4 of Solos, red Solos, over to a place called Goodwood in England for the Festival of Speed. And anybody listening to this who has not been to the Festival of Speed, get your bad self out there. It is the greatest automotive event in history, right? So we had them, and they went up the hill. People in Europe went bonkers over these things because the roads are as wide as this table, if that, right? For 2 cars, right? And so you have to lean over into the ditch, let somebody, it's perfect for a Solo. And the garages are, again, ideal for the Solo. Yeah. So we had people actually getting angry that we weren't able to just sell them one of the Solos we had because they were there in bond and had to come back. So Italy, France, Spain, the UK and all that, that's really what we're going to target with, as well as Arizona and California with the Solo GT. So I'm targeting myself Q2 of 2025 to have the revised Solo GT, and I've already seen some drawings. You haven't seen them yet, but you will. And you'll also be involved in the drivetrain to make sure that what goes out there not just works, but is reliable for a decade or 2 at least.
Right. Well, what we're talking about here is the Tesla Roadster, which we're very familiar with, has some design flaws. And it was a car that was basically a partial prototype that was pushed out in the field before it was really ready. But it was absolutely essential that Tesla does so because they would not have survived if they had held on to those cars any longer.
Right.
So now in the aftermarket space and at the service center, at the Tesla service center level, we have to deal with some of these design problems. Things like the transistor insulating material dries up, crumbles, and eventually shorts IGBTs that have 400 volts on them. One thing that they did get right and very well was the DC to DC converter, and that is a part that takes the voltage off of the large main battery pack, 400 volts in the case of a Roadster, and converts it to 12 volts for 12-volt support, because you have a lot of 12-volt items in a car. Right. Windshield wiper motors, locks, VMS, vehicle management system, headlights, AC, yes, seat heaters, audio systems, and all that. Well, what we're suspecting with this Solo G3 losing power at times, which was the reason that it was taken off the market, is that it's just not a robust enough APS unit, or what they call an auxiliary power source, or DC to DC converter. We looked at one of the Roadster DC to DC converters yesterday, actually, Jerry and I, and we said, well, what is the amperage on this guy? It turns out it's 120 amps on one leg and 60 amps on another. Well, you basically don't need a battery with that much current available, you know? And then the motor the actual battery in the Tesla Roadster is a small motorcycle battery. It's about 7 amp hour or so. So it doesn't rely on the battery, unlike perhaps the Solo. And we're going to get a couple of cars. We're going to reverse engineer. Do what we do best, which is try to isolate what is the root cause of this problem.
Well, we've even seen on the Tesla Model S DC to DC converters how we have in the past just burned through our 12-volt battery systems when we're trying to do the high voltage repair. It's the same thing. We got to where we would put a 12 volt, 140 amp hour battery underneath the battery charger just to give it enough amperage, and we found that the Model S was drawing as much as 60 amps.
Yeah.
And so I could see that.
See, that's a confusion that I get, like from people saying, okay, look, if I leave my gas car in the garage for 6 months, I come back, the 12 volt is dead, it doesn't start. I understand that. Yeah. But how is it that I can leave my Solo or my Tesla in the garage? It's got 95 kilowatt hours of electricity in the high voltage battery pack, but the 12 volt battery is dead and it won't start. Like, what is up with that? Why can't there be something that connects? Because the power is there. We could do that. Like, what's going on, and what can we do so that every time it drops below a certain bit, it kicks on and then keeps that charging? Because on a gas car, you need to start the alternator and get all that stuff going.
Yep.
You don't need to do that. Like, it could take care of itself for a year or two, like these things do on Mars.
Yeah. In a standard ICE car, the 12-volt battery does nothing other than, and that's why they call them starter batteries, is start the engine. Once the alternator is running, the 12-volt devices run off that, basically. What you had mentioned with the later model Teslas, the reason that the 12-volt system goes dead after a while is the contactors open up, which is actually a design improvement. It will kill the 12-volt battery. But unlike the Roadster, which continues to drain the main battery when you get a low state of charge, you now get what's called a brick condition, which is another reason we're in business, because we revive so many Tesla Roadsters when they do get bricked. But yeah, we're going to do a deep dive into that 12-volt system on the Solos and see what's going on. Why are they losing power? Why is that 12-volt system not able to support the electronics?
On the G3s, and then as well, other things like the 120 amp thing, I don't think we need that, but what are the best decisions for the product going forward? Because I own a lot of Teslas at home, and the lessons that were learned on the Roadster, on the Model 3 performances and the Model X's and things like that, these are bulletproof vehicles. We just love them, and they learned a lot off that, and that's the stage that we're at with the Solo.
Yeah. Now we have a lot of comments coming in. We'll start with Tom Jensen. He says, quite nice. Get it on the road, Peter. Thank you for joining us, Tom.
Yes, thank you. Instagram, Narendrainane 713 is giving us the thumbs up. Thank you. Clark from Gilbert, rode my bike by the Solo EM building, the Electromechanica building, but could not get to see all the cars in back. Yeah, that is currently, the only reason we got back there was because we were picking up something from the auction.
You were rolling with the founder. You can get in anywhere.
Yesterday I could have. Yes, that's true.
Yes.
It's like showing up to the set of Deadpool with Ryan Reynolds. You're going to get in the door, right? It's not an issue, right?
And what a palatial building. It is gorgeous. It's virtually brand new. And one of the ways you could tell is I looked at the landscaping out there and the trees were tiny. You know?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But
on the far corner of the building, there's also the retail center. And the idea always was, and my mission is to get that to happen again, was on weekends, Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings, was to do a monthly Solo Palooza where anybody with a Solo would show up, free pancakes, free coffee, everything, and just get together and just have a coffee and cars, but Solo Palooza. And then from there, do whatever the heck you want to do. And that's the exact right place to do it.
So we were talking about the type of support that is available to Solo in the state of Arizona. And when I asked Jerry about that, he says, well, you know that governor that used to make ice cream? And I thought for a moment, we're talking about Doug Ducey and his administration, who I guess supported Electromechanica.
Great guy. I've had a chat with him as well, too. And he was absolutely thrilled with the vehicles too, right? Just like anybody would be. Like, you're looking at this thing, and I remember the one comment from somebody saying, the Solo's a lot like Mesa. It's a lot bigger than it looks. Like, than people would think. Like, once you get into the Solo, you go, this thing is actually pretty big. Just like when you get into Mesa, you go, wow, Mesa is huge.
So going now into the future, what's next for Solo? Of course, some of the cars have been retrieved from owners. Maybe you can talk about the plans for that.
Yeah, the request went out to people saying, hey, look, this is a glitch and it's going to cause some potential issues, even though you haven't had them before. And if you like what we'll do, which was very honorable of the company to say, look, whatever you paid for it, whenever you got the car, whether it was a year ago or whatever, going to give you 100 cents on the dollar back for the vehicle because we're not comfortable with that.
Right.
We haven't met you.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, right? Nobody's out there saying, oh, I got ripped off. No, you used the car for a year. You got 100 cents back. The problem, however, is that you gave up a really beautiful car, right? And the people who said, no, you know, I'm okay with this thing. It's never caused me trouble. I'm one of those people. I have two of them, right? As well, too. I've never had a problem with it, right? Have the vehicle now. These are wonderful collector cars. We're going to try to get the balance of them back with your help as well, too. So getting them back out there on the road as well, too, adds value to our understanding of how people use the cars. And it's not just as a commuter vehicle. They're using them for promotions, for deliveries, for all kinds of interesting things. Just like the iPhone came out as a camera, a phone, and a internet. Now you can buy tickets to movies, tickets to airlines. You can do anything with the iPhone. And that's really the premise for the Solo as it is now, and as it will be with the Solo GT coming out next year, with ideas from all the owners and from electronics experts like yourselves.
You know, when we first got involved, it was through the auctioneer here in town, actually. And we went to 3 different auctions, actually, picked up some of the assets there. But what ignited my passion was when I heard that some of these cars are being crushed.
Yeah.
And I thought immediately, this is reminiscent of the 1994 GM EV1 debacle, which actually generated a couple of movies, some books, and ignited and actually launched car companies. Allegedly, according to legend, Elon Musk was so motivated by hearing about a candlelight vigil up in the Bay Area where a bunch of EV enthusiasts that were lamenting the demise of the EV1, that he thought, well, maybe with this much passion, there's a car company here. Yeah. And so that's what was our original interest. The other thing that was so ironic is the location for this Electromechanica factory is within a stone's throw of where GM crushed all of those 1,700 EV1s. And now that site is gone. It's been leveled, and they built a high school on that property. But they kept the legend alive by putting a gigantic mural in the cafeteria showing the EV1s being crushed. So there's a lot of history here. And our mission now is to save these cars along with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's really the deal. When you watch the movies like Who Killed the Electric Car and then Revenge of the Electric Car, and you see the passion of people like Danny DeVito going, this is an amazing car, right?
Right.
That's not a paid endorsement. He actually loves a car, and people do as well, too, which is why, for the most part, electric cars don't need advertising. Sure. As the owners are the advocates. Yeah. And if you have a product where the owners are the advocates, you know you're on the right track. So getting these cars rehab, making them work right, which is really important too. So there isn't even the potential for a glitch on these things. That's really important, getting that forward too. And it's an evolution of where we are. Where we are with electric cars right now, actually outperforming internal combustion cars is incredible. Can they be improved? Absolutely. Sure. Yeah. And that's the journey that we're not just on, but everybody's on. And I think within the next 5 to 10 years, when you hear a gas car drive by, that'll be an anomaly.
Yeah.
I think it will too.
We're looking forward to that day. Bunch more coming in. Chica M. Robinson, I love Tesla vehicles. Okay, excellent.
Awesome. And Highlander's joining us. He's one of our regular guests. Says, awesome guest, very informative from the Highlander.
Richard is joining us. Richard's also an author, Richard Flenchie, who used to work with Jack Ricard, EVTV. He was one of the godfathers in the EV space. Sadly died about 3 years ago or so. But Richard was on our podcast just a few weeks ago, and he's asking, do you get your DC to DC converters from China?
They're available from anywhere in the world, but yes, the ones that we had were manufactured in the Detroit of China, and it sounds like a made-up name, but the city is called Chongqing. And it is a massive city. It's known for its mountains and rivers and everything like that, but that's where it came from. I don't think where the DC, because they're not failing, the DC-DC converter is not failing, it's just under spec for what it needs to be done. So it wouldn't matter where it came from if it was the same spec.
Right.
It needs to be more robust.
And the chronology there is the G1s and G2s were made in Canada.
Correct, yeah.
And then the G3 was 100% made in China.
Correct.
Which is the current version that is populating this 300,000 square foot building.
Yes, and now next is Uncle Mark's DIY Automotive Fix-It channel.
Okay.
Good name, that Mark name. I like that.
It is.
Interesting live stream, he says. And then on TikTok, On-Call Diagnosis Module says, why is it named Solo?
You're asking?
Yeah. So that's one for
I
you.
know the
Why
answer.
Why is the car named Solo?
So being an entrepreneur and being in the marketing business, I just love this sort of thing. So I was thinking of names for the car as well too, like Uno and Dharma, because I own a Fisker Karma as well too. I'm a big fan of that as well too. And I remember just sitting there with sketches from Rob King of what the car's going to look like, and then just putting names up there, and just it takes time on that. And that's when I went, Solo. It's a one-person car.
Right.
Your name has to be your promise, right? So I put that up there, and I'm going, wow, that's actually a really good name. And then I looked it up, and our IP lawyer said they couldn't believe that Solo was available for a car globally. Yeah. So we have the Solo trademark around the world for it. And when people say, it's a one-person car, what do you call it? It says Solo right on the side of it. It literally says what it is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Perfect. All right, TikTok. John Denson, 689 says, I set up a charger to my 12 volt because of the starting problem with my plug-in hybrid. Okay. And those batteries, those 12 volt batteries don't last forever too, especially here in Arizona. We get probably 2 years out of them with the intense heat that we have.
Well, I'll also say that that's not an exclusive issue with electric cars either, because my wife drives a McLaren, a 540C, and when you turn it off, it says right on there, this battery will last 30 days, and they're overstating the fact. If you leave it for 2 weeks without plugging it in the trickle charger, you'll come in there, and that's done too.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
And those are expensive batteries, I hear, those McLaren 12 volt batteries.
Do you know what they cost? $5,000. Canadian. Yeah. So that's why when you pop the frunk of a McLaren, there's an actual cigarette lighter where you can plug in. They're all set up for that sort of thing as well too, because of the type of battery that they have. Yeah.
We have batteries manufactured for us overseas, Vietnam and China.
That's right.
And one of my friends here locally had a McLaren, and he says, Pete, this battery, they were charging him $3,600, and it might have been a used battery, but he says, there's you got to take a look at this. You got to start making this, right? there's some margin here, right? So what I did was I actually cut the top off, and I looked inside, and there was virtually nothing in there. It was a small lithium ion, square pack.
A couple of squirrels with a little treadmill in there.
Right. So we sent it off to China, and we said, guys, reverse engineer this. There's a market here. Well, 6 months went by, and there just wasn't enough volume to interest them. So we did have our shot at recreating this, but it's one of those things, you think that's bad. The propulsion battery in a LaFerrari, which we worked on about 4 months ago or so, it's much smaller than the Tesla Roadster battery, which is 1,000 pounds. This is probably about 300 pounds or so. $300,000 for that battery pack. And of course, we had to do a deep dive in order to determine what was wrong with it. We kept looking for gold somewhere in there, or platinum or anything, right? It was
amortized engineering.
Right, yeah.
Wow. And that's the part about value engineering. Can you build it? If you can, thumbs up. Can you build it so everybody can have one? That's exciting.
Yeah.
It really is.
And that's a challenge. TikTok, Jamji says, just got laid off by Tesla. You know, I'm so sorry to hear that. Some of the people that I knew at Tesla, same thing. And we don't know what the formula was, but it does not appear to be performance-based. It was just, maybe it was the luck of the draw.
I'm not sure. I've heard that it's been kind of random. It's what it seems like.
Yeah. But apparently a necessary move. Elon had many justifications for it, and he's encouraging the current team to work even harder to meet the goals and objectives. And, you know, I wouldn't be too concerned, because people with your skills in the EV space, you have marketable skills beyond what you may believe.
If I may, universities, colleges, trade schools, and all that, anybody who's graduating from high school and looking for a career in that are learning the electric vehicle trades right now. Exactly what you're doing here at Gruber is exactly what they're doing. That's the future. And not just for cars, boats, aviation, trucks, everything as well too. So if anybody got laid off, I'm pretty sure it'll be about, like, at the most 30 minutes before you get a phone call from somebody else with an electric outboard company who needs exactly your skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, sorry to hear that, and we wish you the best. It looks like Victor, our service manager at GMC, is chiming in. He says, I can't wait to drive a Solo.
Yeah.
I can make that happen.
Yeah. It will be here soon, Victor, and we're looking forward to getting you back. He was moving this weekend, so he's been out the weekend and today and yesterday. Instagram, Wayne Gore 85. He said, what about cold weather regarding the Solo? Any sort of issues with the three-wheeler in cold weather?
I see that all the pictures are gone off of your screen there too, but
fix that. Yeah.
My friend Chris and I, we made a habit as we were developing the Solo that we would get up at 4:30 in the morning, and Chris is German as well too, so 4:30 on a weekend morning is not a big issue. We would get up, we would get into the Solos, and we'd drive up through 18 inches of snow through the 3 big hills on the north shore of Vancouver: Grouse, Cypress, and Seymour. Right. We would go up these things and just beat the crap out of these cars in minus Celsius, 15, 20, and all that. Right. Absolutely no issue with that. I never saw any degradation in the performance of the vehicles. Mm-hmm. And there's something interesting about the way the vehicle performs with 50% of the weight on one rear wheel, where it actually feels like a snowmobile in the snow, because that's the exact layout of a snowmobile as well, too.
It sure is.
Yeah.
It is just a remarkable deal. And for the people from far north, like Alaska and all that, or Chicago, saying, oh, it's too cold for an electric car, going, just a reminder, guys, Mars gets down to minus 300 degrees. Right. And there's no internal combustion on Mars. It's 100% EV. Right. And they work for years and years out there. So as soon as Chicago drops below minus 300, we may have an issue with EVs.
Okay, so
that's a great point. Now, what kind of watts per mile does the Solo typically expend while it's driving? Is it
who's driving, you or me? Because I can really. We never really did that, but I have customized some Tesla Model 3 performances as well too. And next weekend, both at Laguna Seca and at the Mission Raceway track in Canada, I've cut the body off a Model 3 performance at 2 different ones, right? Okay. So you've got a 500 kilometer range in the car. I can burn through that in 20 minutes. It's literally, you can watch it drop. And then the analysis when you finish, it's using energy at 1,500 kilometers per hour. So 20 minutes, boom. You literally have to get off the accelerator in order to make your 25 or 30 minute race time. It's the fastest car out there. Like we're setting
I'm
track
sure
records
it
everywhere
is.
out there, right?
Right.
But you have to manage it. And the neat thing is, it's like managing tires in F1. Anybody who's an F1 fan knows you can't just hit it. These guys are managing their tires. They could go way faster if they had the tire on it, right? But they have to manage the tires. And electric car racing, which is going to be the next big deal, you should not be recreationally burning fossil fuels. That's doubling down on the offensiveness of fossil fuels. But
Well said.
electric car racing, that's going to be the next big venue. So we're introducing 2 new Nickies, Nicki 002 and Nicki 003, over the next couple of weekends, Laguna Seca and Mission Raceway. And it really does depend on how hard you push it. And if you're racing, just like with an Indy car, I think it's burning like 3 gallons of fuel per lap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Indy.
Yeah,
Right?
something like that.
There's not a road car that does that.
So, question for you. When we were out waiting to have the door opened up when we were picking up things from the auction, we looked at a number of cars that were sitting outside partially disassembled. And I was marveling at the construction of these vehicles. They were at one point, the auction included a roll of what they call carbon fiber cloth material, right? But it was beige, and I thought, well, we use black with the Tesla Roadster world, and I almost bid on that, but I didn't, and a bunch of resin as well. But then I began to realize how they were utilizing this. There are layers of carbon fiber cloth on top of you called it an egg crate or a
aluminum honeycomb. So it's called Teclum, and it's an actual material from the aerospace industry. And our designer for the Solo, Rod Trene, made a Daytona car called the Mosler Trene, very famous car that actually won Daytona as well too. And the chassis construction was a box construction of this Teclam, Teklam,
okay.
Material, which I believe is used on the floors of either the 777 or the 787.
Okay.
Composite aircraft. So it's probably 777, right? Of that. And it is a wonderful material. And you don't have to do dies and everything to do it. You can actually cut it out and assemble it by hand, which is what we were doing with that sort of stuff. And it is incredibly rigid. And then you put the body around that too. So each of these cars out there is actually a one-person supercar on the road. And value engineering, $18,500 for a one-person supercar. And the Mosler Trene has got to be like a $5 million car, but we use the exact same kind of construction material for that. When we ran it through side impact tests and overhead tests and all that, we exceeded the federal standards by 10 times.
Really?
As we were driving these things. So anybody who says, oh, this thing looks like it gets squashed. Well, first of all, they sell millions of motorcycles around the world per year that have nothing. Second thing is this is fully enclosed in a very high-tech safety cell, right? And third of all, you're 10 times the safety of anything that's required by any government.
That's very interesting. I've got a very good friend who lives in the southeastern part of the Phoenix metro area, and his wife drives a smart car for that very reason.
Yeah.
She's been in accidents a couple different times, and she says she prefers the smart car to a large, heavy car. It would seem to defy expectation, but really what it is that the smart car is meant to keep the cage intact and roll.
Well, it's what I said to Pete as well. If you've got a big SUV that's 6,000 pounds, you have the same door on it as you do on a Solo, right?
Right.
If you get hit by the T-bone, by the proverbial cement truck, that 6,000 pound car is holding you in place as the concrete truck goes through the door and squishes you. It's not going to move.
That's true.
It's a
If
crumple
you get-
zone. Yeah.
Yeah, well, crumple zone right through you, right through the door. If you're in a 1,200 pound Solo and you have the same door, you get hit by the proverbial concrete truck, you're going to get launched way over there. Get out. You're having a bad day, but it's a survivable day. And every race car driver knows if you crash an Indy car, a nice light Indy car, 300 miles an hour, doink, 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 and it'll stop. At 200 miles an hour, a heavy NASCAR will keep going and going just because of the weight issue, right? So a lighter weight, more intelligently engineered vehicle will be safer. And I think the BMW i3 falls into that category as well, too.
Yes, they do, definitely.
You know, looking at the construction, it was about a half-inch thick by the time those two layers are merged with that aluminum, sandwich, basically.
He loves that material.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I was looking at this. How did they machine this? How did they cut it? How did they shape it? You know?
Yeah,
And-
it's aerospace technology in a car. And the first ones that we did in Canada were actually manufactured at the Victoria Airport by aviation engineers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that's, again, part of the heritage and mystique behind the solo that's available on Amazon.com in this book. And I know you're going to do a promo on that too. But some of the interesting stuff that happened as you're engineering this, the way that it's come together as well too, is absolutely brilliant. And I really do think that the Solo GT that you're going to be involved in making sure is as robust as possible is going to be as important to the electric automobile industry as the Volkswagen Beetle was when it came out to the general automotive industry. The right vehicle for the right mission.
Fascinating. Yes. More questions? Highlander, he says, when is the 40th anniversary celebration and is it open to the general public? What Highlander's talking about is our company was founded in 1984. And we have a 40-year anniversary this year. The staff has even bought a time capsule.
That's right.
And that's going to be some things inserted and it'll be buried for posterity.
Yeah, they're going to have the time capsule. I'm looking forward to seeing what all they have.
You got to put one of these sunglasses in there for sure. Right?
You know, we probably should put one of the sunglass cases.
These are
in there.
awesome.
In fact, that is Highlander's next question. He says, "I realize we have a great guest. Are we going to run commercials today? This is a great time for commercial. Not only commercial, the sunglass case. Full grain leather. We've talked about this before. You guarantee that it will not scratch your lenses because feel that it's so nice and soft on the inside.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so this is yours.
Come
Gift
on,
from
that's
Gruber
my color
Motors.
too. Thank you very much.
And why don't you tell them the family business background on what started these sunglass holders?
Yeah, we see. My son went into the Bible rebinding business about 3 years ago. He wanted to get his own personal Bible rebound. The cover was falling off. It doesn't last. He got it in high school. It was already falling apart. He went to take it out, get the cover fixed, found out that it was going to be $450 and he was going to have to send it off for a year. Yeah, and there was very few people who would do it. So he decided to get into the business himself. He learned how to do it. Next thing you know, we've got the whole family involved in helping with the business. And one of the things that we wanted to do because of the sunglasses and stuff here is we talked a little bit with Pete and with Jesse and said, hey, we could reverse engineer our own sunglass case.
Yeah.
We bought one online on Etsy and said, yeah, we can do this. So we figured out how to make the sunglass cases as well out of the real full grain leather hides. We'll cut them out and hand sew them, use the laser to engrave them, and
well, like a craftsman tool. I mean, this is going to last forever. You can give anybody a forever warranty on it. If they wear this out, I will buy them a new one. This is going to last forever.
Well, exactly, and that's what we do with what my son does with the Bibles too. It's a lifetime warranty. He says, hey, if you have a problem, if anything ever happens, send it back to us.
Yeah.
We'll take
No
care
questions
of it.
asked.
No questions asked.
Yeah.
We'll recover it. We'll send you a new one. Whatever it is that you need to have done, we'll make sure it gets done.
How do you beat that?
You don't?
You can't. No, that's the last word. I love that.
So for those of you interested in the solo project, you know us. We're going to do videos. We're going to keep you updated. We're going to bring information to the podcasts, and it'll be an interesting experiment with the two cars that we're going to get. What colors, by the way? Have you thought about that?
What would you
yet?
like? They come in titanium silver, snow white, raven black, and lava red.
I think lava red to start with, because I'm a Ferrari guy. You know, red tan was a very popular car in the Ferrari world, and then maybe silver. Yeah, that would go with our VIN 711.
Because that's German.
Oh yeah, the silver would be great.
Porsche, yeah.
Yeah,
that'd be
that
wonderful.
would be.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that, and we will be able to service these cars after we do our the reverse engineering. So there's
we have a
local
lot of
service
spare
center.
parts as well too. So if anybody has an incident with their headlight or rear view mirror or anything like that, there'll be parts available for that as well too. We have you and I are gonna work on a deal on some solo covers for the people who need them as well too. So we have some of those things coming as well too. So that'll be a deal. And I look forward to, once we get things settled down a little bit, is organizing a solo palooza for the people who have their solos and can all get together and share their stories. All incredible stories.
Really. How many are out in the world right now?
We had 1,400 out there right now. How many have come back and been taken back, or how many we get back out there is yet to be played. But there's 1,400 that have been made out there right now. Not all of them are in North America. I think there's 120 or something like that remained in China over there. But the balance of them are in Canada and the United States. There's some in Europe.
Yeah.
I know, because I was over there in January driving them around over there. So if you're in Barcelona and going, what the heck is that? Come talk to me. I'll tell you what that is. And I'm telling you, you could drive a Ferrari or a Bugatti or anything in Barcelona. You drive this thing, you're creating some attention.
Really. And you know, those medieval cities and towns were built well before there was any type of transportation like this. We're talking about horse-drawn, maybe carts, that sort of thing. And you're right. I mean, the streets are narrow, and there's not much chance to change that because you have 800-year-old buildings on either side, and they're not going to tear those down to widen it, to put a freeway through there.
Well, the other thing for other places in the world, like North America as well, is there's something coming up called congestion fees, because you can only fit so many cars downtown before nobody can move. And driving from South Phoenix up here, I know what they're talking about. So when you get into a certain area, they're actually dinging people $25 for driving a 5 or 7 person car within a congested area.
Really?
I've heard about that in Manhattan.
Yes. Manhattan, Washington, D.C., London, England, they do all that. You drive a 1 person car because you got to go to work, you're free. In you go. And that's a value, because you multiply $25 times 5 days a week times 52 weeks in a year. That's a lot of money, right? Even if it's an electric car. But if you're concerned about your footprint and you're doing an intelligent job, and if the cities are doing an intelligent job to say, hey, we can have thousands of 1 person, because that's all that you need to do. Don't show up with your motorhome, driving it by yourself and expect to park it on the side of the street and tie up traffic, right? That's going to be expensive. And they have ways of dinging you off of your license plate for that, which is just fair, because we all want to have free traffic. You don't want to be just stuck in congestion. So the congestion fees are something that is coming. And the amount of money they take off the congestion fee doesn't just go to pay off the governors and the mayors or anything like that. That will be applied to mass transit. So the people who don't want to drive can drive a bus or a SkyTrain or something like that too, right? But the 1 person motorcycle, or ideally 1 person enclosed solo, is an ideal commuter vehicle or delivery vehicle.
Okay. So the Solo GT, what year did you say we would be able to see something like that?
Q2 2025. And I'm going to sound a little bit like Elon here a little bit, because my job is to turn the impossible into the delayed. Hopefully it's not delayed. But like, I've been waiting 4 years for my Tesla new Roadster to show up, right?
Yeah.
And too. My wife, I still owe her a honeymoon trip through Europe in our Roadster. Beautiful. I got the founder's version of the Roadster because I need the vectoring jets, because we're in a wet area. You got to vector around the corner, like 0 to 60 in more than 1 second. That's boring, right? So we've got to do that. I need white. So if whoever's out there in Tesla land hears me, I'm ready to accept delivery, whatever, right? So I know that we can produce these value engineered cars quickly. We've got great people on board. We've done it before. This will be an evolution of the product, right? Not a clean sheet, because the current product works so well, except for a few things, right? That we will get easily ironed out and then get them back out there.
Perfect.
And again, you are now the sole owner of Solo Automotive Inc.
Correct.
And so Exos bought the Electromechanica assets. You got Electromechanica merged with them, and then and now you are owning the assets of the Solo vehicle.
They're
itself,
truck
correct?
guys. They just get it so well. And talking to them, they understand not just the product but the people as well too, and what the missions are. Right?
Sure.
I really have to take my hat off to these guys. They really know what they're doing, and I think it's a underappreciated company for what they're doing, and I think they're just going to take off, right? But the Solo, which is the other end of the spectrum, that's something that I've always felt, and like in Europe as well too, has to be something. So that is back in the hands of the founder, and away we go.
Fantastic.
Perfect. one other thing was the prancing horse. No, that's the Ferrari. I'm sorry. Tell us about the history of that cool logo for Electromechanica.
Sure, it's good. And on the chance that Paula Reisner and Henry Reisner are listening, so the Reisner family started Intermechanica in 1959 in Turin, Italy, and the prancing bull is the logo for the city of Turin, right? So when they see it, they think, oh, you've combined the Lamborghini Bull with the prancing horse. No. It actually is from Turin, Italy, right? Okay. And it's always been the Intermechanica product. And there are books on Intermechanica, The Legend of the Prancing Bull, that are also available on Amazon. Lovely history. Stories like Henry's mom, Paula, sitting at the kitchen table with a young Lee Iacocca, who'd been sent to Italy to learn the automotive business back in the 60s. Like,
oh, goodness.
And I asked her about this. I said, you actually sat on the kitchen table like with Lee Iacocca? And she says, yeah. And I tell you, young man, my husband was sitting there and this guy was hitting on me. This is Italy, right? Right. So we carried on with that tradition of really gorgeous cars. And if you can get your hands on an Intermechanica, these are collectible cars. And the family knew we have to go to electric. So Henry, his entire family, they love the idea. We've done incredibly well with it so far. And the journey truly is just beginning. I just talked to Henry again this morning. So he says hi to everybody here as well, too.
Fantastic. And Jesse, if you wanted to pull up logo.jpg, that is that dancing bull.
Prancing, not dancing.
Prancing bull. Prancing bull.
Prancing bull. Yeah, it is called logo.jpg.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah.
So do I have it on shirt? Oh, yeah, it's on the shirt.
Yeah,
as well.
you have it on the shirt too.
Absolutely, yeah. So interesting. Any relationship between the Lamborghini and Ferrari families and this particular background?
They were all interconnected. I think the highest profile thing is that Henry's dad, Frank, was approached by General Motors to do one of his Italian-bodied cars with a GM motor in it for that. And they did all of that. And then at the last minute, he didn't like being part of a big corporation, which is understandable. Okay. So he bailed on that, and it was taken over by, are you familiar with Bitter? The BITT?
German company?
Yeah, German company that was building with Jim. So the Bitter guys took over, but that could have been an Intermechanica car from the Reisner family. But instead of that, he decided to come over to Los Angeles and start building the Roadsters with the VW motors in the back of them, and now Subaru motors. And then from there, they moved up to Vancouver, and that's where they built up the company. So there's a GM connection in there. I'm not aware of a Ferrari or an Italian connection, but through the designers, and I'm not even going to try his name, but if you get the book, The Story of the Prancing Bull, you will see that some of the designers for the Italia, the Intermechanica Italia, are the same designers that were working for Ferrari.
I see. Yeah. Like Pininfarina?
I want to say it's Scaglietti, but I'm probably mispronouncing it. Yeah, and then again, you talk to Paula, who would also be an incredible interview as well, too, because she knows all these people personally. She goes, oh, yeah, we used to take that guy. We used to go for dinner and blah, 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 like that. She is one of the touchstone for the automotive industry.
Sure.
Yeah, really. And when we were designing the Solo, this is a great story. We're all sitting there with some of the best engineers are doing all this. She's hovering over our shoulders, and all of a sudden she pipes in and she goes, boys, how does a young lady in a skirt actually get into your car? And wow, we never even thought of that, right? Because we're all guys, like none of us wears a skirt. So it's like, okay, if you do wear a skirt, how do you do it? So we actually did some re-engineering, and that's the magic that she has. And she made me promise, she says, promise me never make an ugly car.
Yeah.
Right. And that was her one thing. And that's where she's coming from as well, too. I love that. That's every car guy loves that.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting the wrap-up symbol from the staff behind all the equipment there. It has been a sheer pleasure to have you here today, Jerry.
It's been fun, yeah.
Great
fun.
Thank you, Jerry.
And again, for those of you that want more information, stay tuned. Our YouTube channel will be continuing on this solo project. And
quick, I have a plug here as well. I think this is the book, I hope, or I'm putting up the wrong book.
That is the right book.
Wow, you're right. Amazon.com. Yeah.
I just realized I have to hold
And
it like this in order.
yeah,
There
it's
we go.
available digitally. It's available in hard copy, soft copy, and soon audio as well too. I just spent like 8 days recording it.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I saw it on paperback as well. So
Yeah.
Well, Jerry, again, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you here. And
Thank you very much.
thank you.
We will continue the saga. And for those of you that want to join us in about 7 minutes or so, we're going to continue with the Tesla Roadster podcast. And today's theme there is going to be summer is coming. Your Roadsters are not quite, heat proof. And we'll show you ways to mitigate the problems that you may have if you live in a climate like Phoenix and your car goes into limp mode, or or the AC turns off while you're driving, for example. But the worst one is when you can't charge. And I have Tesla VIN number 5 at home, by the way. It was one of the very early ones. And when I got home last night, it was down to 85 miles range. Usually hovers about 150. It's because that 12-volt pump has been running for 3 days trying to cool the car. So we quickly put a fan on it and got it, cooling again. So join us in a few minutes here. We'll start the Tesla Roadster podcast. Thanks for being an audience today.
Thank you.